I was looking for a break from city life, so I planned a weekend camping trip in a national park. I set up my tent by a murky lake. The air smelled of damp earth. Autumn leaves crunched under my boots. I thought I'd find some inspiration in the quiet. The first night was calm. I built a small fire and settled in. The sound of crackling wood felt comforting, but as the darkness set in, I heard laughter. It echoed through the trees. I thought it was familiar but couldn't place it. I looked around, expecting to see other campers, but I saw no one. The campsite felt empty. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just my imagination, but the chill in the air made me shiver. Over the next few nights, the laughter changed. It turned into soft humming. I could hear it while sitting by the fire. The shadows danced around me in the flickering light. I thought the wind or trees were making the sound. Still, I felt uneasy. I kept telling myself I was fine, but every time I heard that humming, it burrowed deeper into my mind. Then I noticed marks on my tent. Odd patterns I never saw before. I couldn't tell if they were scratched or if I was just imagining things. My heart raced as I felt the cold fabric. I tried to remember if I'd done anything to cause them. The forest, my retreat, began to feel heavy. The trees looked larger, more intimidating. I felt something was watching me. Shadows moved between the trunks, but I couldn't tell if it was my eyes playing tricks on me. On what I think was the fourth night, I stepped outside. I needed to breathe. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. It was hard to shake off the feeling of being watched. I turned toward the humming and called out, "Hello?" Silence followed. Just then, I spotted a figure standing between the trees. My heart pounded. I tensed up, trying to make out what it was. It didn't move. I wanted to scream, but my voice froze. I blinked, and it was gone. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What did I see? Was it real? The woods felt like they were closing in on me. I kept wondering what secrets they held. Then, on the fifth night, I heard a whisper. It was faint, but clear. "Why are you here?" I turned around, but there was nobody there. The laughter, the humming, the figure, and now the whisper made me question everything. I was not just uncomfortable. I was scared. I felt trapped. I packed my bags in the dark, shaking with fear. As I stumbled my way back to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching me, lurking just beyond the trees. I never looked back. As I drove away from the park, the sunlight spilled over the horizon, but it did little to warm my chest. I didn't feel free yet. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that figure following me. The trees stood tall and sharp against the morning sky, silhouettes of a nightmare clinging to the edges of my mind. The drive home felt longer than usual. The road twisted like a snake through the landscape, and each curve pulled at my nerves. What had I really seen? I couldn't shake the memory of that presence. The laughter, the humming, the whisper. They all replayed in my head like a broken record. Once I was back in the city, I thought I could finally breathe again. I threw my bags on the floor and paced my apartment. My phone chimed with notifications, but it all felt distant, like noise from another universe. I needed to talk about it, but who would understand? Most people go camping for fun, not to encounter. Whatever that was, I rummaged through my bag, tossing aside my clothes until I found my journal. Writing had always been my way of sorting through thoughts. I needed to pour it all out. As I scribbled my experiences, a chilling thought crept in. What if I wasn't alone in that park? What if someone or something had been there with me? I stopped writing midway and leaned back in my chair. The humming had felt so close, so personal. A shroud of dread settled over me. I shook it off, telling myself it was just my imagination stirring up more trouble. But even as I flipped to a new page, my hand trembled. That's when I noticed something there, in the corner of my notebook. It was a photo I didn't remember taking. I picked it up and gasped. It was a blurry image of the trees around my campsite, but in the center, there was a dark shape, too distorted to recognize. My heart raced as I thought back to that night, the figure in the shadows. I hadn't seen my phone since I packed up. How did this get here? The unease started to swirl again in my stomach, and I rose to pace my tiny living room. I flipped the photo over, looking for clues, any indication of when or how it was taken. But there was nothing. Just the blank page staring back at me. Suddenly, a loud knock at my door jolted me. I froze. Who could it be? I wasn't expecting anyone. Hesitantly, I peered through the peephole. A delivery person waited on the other side. But their eyes, there was something strange about them. They glanced around nervously, almost as if apprehensive of what lay behind them. "Package for you," they called, forcing a smile that didn't reach their eyes. I felt a strange compulsion wash over me. "Open the door," echoed in my mind, a whisper that felt all too familiar. For a moment, time stood still. I could feel something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what it was. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Should I answer? I could just pretend I wasn't home. But then that voice came back in a whisper, clearer than ever. "Open the door." I stepped away, my pulse quickening. The figure from the woods had returned to haunt me, and the feeling of something watching me stirred again. Before I could think twice, I turned and fled into my bedroom. The laughter, the humming, the figure. It may not be over yet. I pressed my back against the bedroom wall, my breath hitching. I could hear my heart battering against my chest, pounding in rhythm with those relentless knocks at the door. I felt as if I were in a movie, waiting for something terrible to happen. What did that delivery person want? Was this connected to the figure I encountered? I recalled the way they shifted nervously, as if they were anticipating something lurking just outside my view. Maybe this was connected to that dark shape in the photo. Fear twisted in my gut, close to panic now. Rushing over to my nightstand, I yanked open the drawer. Despite feeling foolish, I grabbed the small camping knife I always kept with me. It was for safety, certainly not for a situation like this, but I felt less vulnerable clutching it. The knock came again, sharp and demanding. "Package for you," they called out. But I could hear the edge of urgency threading through their words. It didn't sound like a simple delivery anymore. It felt like an insistent call to an unwelcome truth. I could hear the laughter again, faint but distinct just beyond my window. My instincts screamed at me to stay quiet, to hide. I moved to peer through the slats of the blinds. The street below was empty, dull gray pavement stretching in both directions. Nothing seemed amiss. But something inside me whispered that even emptiness in that moment was full of danger. Then my phone buzzed on the bed, shattering the silence. I glanced back, heart racing. Who would be texting me right now? I set the knife down for a moment, hesitant to leave my hiding place, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a message from Hannah, my friend from the camping trip. "Hope you're okay. I had a weird feeling when you left." The unease bubbled to the surface again. What did she mean by that? Without thinking, I typed back, "Weird things happened. Call me." Before I could hit send, another knock echoed through the apartment, more urgent. "I know you're in there," the delivery person said, their voice tight. My heart jumped. I didn't want to acknowledge them, but the way they shouted felt almost threatening. I pressed my back against the wall once more, the knife gripped tightly in my palm. Suddenly my phone buzzed again, but it wasn't Hannah responding. It was a photo. The image loaded slowly, and when it came into focus, my stomach turned. It was a picture of me, taken from behind the trees at the park. My heart sank as I recognized the same dark shape from the photo in my notebook looming in the background. A chill traced down my spine. "Who took this?" I whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. Just then the sounds of laughter grew louder, merging with the distant humming from the delivery person outside. With a sudden jolt, I realized I didn't just feel like I was being watched, I was being hunted. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, disoriented. The room was silent now, but the echoes of laughter still danced in my mind, taunting me. I took a moment to gather myself, feeling the chill of reality sink in. The darkness felt thicker than before, suffocating. I struggled to remember how long I'd been out, but the anxiety twisted the remnants of my memory into vague shadows. I flipped on the light beside my bed. The sudden brightness stung my eyes, but the relief was immediate. I found the door still closed and the delivery person was gone, leaving nothing but an eerie quiet that settled like fog. I glanced at my phone, the screen glowing faintly. No new messages. That disturbing photo. I needed to know who had taken it and why. I stood holding onto the knife tightly, a lifeline amidst the uncertainty. As I walked toward my desk, I noticed the window. I hadn't closed the blinds. My pulse quickened. I forced myself to peer outside. The street below was deserted, but then I spotted something. A figure, shrouded in darkness, stood under a street lamp some distance away, their face obscured. Was it watching me? I shivered and stepped back, closing the blinds with a trembling hand. I sat down hard in front of my desk, trying to regain my composure. I pulled out my notebook, flipping through the pages frantically, until I reached the drawing of the dark shape. The way it hovered in the background of my park photo crept into my thoughts, gnawing at me. It was more than just a random shadow. My phone buzzed again, yanking me from my reverie. This time, it was Hannah. Just got back from the trip. What happened to you? Are you safe? I replied quickly, I'm okay. But something's off. I'll explain later. I hesitated before adding, I feel like someone is watching me. Before sending the message, I heard it again, the laughter. This time, it felt closer, echoing through my apartment. My heart raced as I leaned toward the window. I had to confront whatever was out there. With mounting dread, I unlocked the window and pulled it open. The cold night air cut through me as I peered down the street. Nothing. Just the empty glow of the street lamp. I was about to close the window when a loud crash came from the hallway, forcing me to freeze. I quickly stepped back, knife at the ready. The sound reverberated through the walls. Someone was in the house. I didn't know who or what it was, but one thing was clear. I wasn't alone anymore. As I gripped the knife tightly, I realized I had to find out what was happening before it was too late. With the crash still haunting the air, I took a deep breath and prepared myself. I needed to confront whatever was lurking just out of sight. There was no turning back. I held the knife tightly, my heart pounding in the silence after the crash. I waited, breath shallow, listening for any indication of movement. Had someone really broken in, or was it just my mind playing tricks? I forced myself to step toward the door, inching closer, each creak of the floor making me freeze. The apartment felt even smaller now, as if the walls were closing in. I imagined the figure from outside, that dark silhouette still lurking beneath the street lamp, now creeping through my home. Shaking off the unsettling thought, I focused on the door, trying to gather the courage to investigate. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. The only response was silence. I took another step forward, knife raised. As I reached for the doorknob, the memories of that photo flashed through my mind, filling me with dread. What if whatever had haunted my day now stood on the other side of that door? With a sudden determination, I twisted the knob and pushed the door open. It swung wide, revealing a dimly lit hallway. No one was there. The air felt thick, heavy with uncertainty. I took a few cautious steps into the hallway, glancing around for any signs of movement. A shuffling sound echoed from the living room, and I instinctively gripped the knife tighter, my pulse racing. I moved quietly toward the sound, half expecting something to jump out at me. The living room was dark, the only light coming from the street lamp filtering through the window. There, on the coffee table, lay my notebook. It was open. I was sure I hadn't left it open. I stepped closer, heart pounding with each movement. The pages flipped as if a breeze had swept through, but the window was closed. I inched forward, looking at the drawings I had sketched in a frenzy. That shadowy figure loomed again, the same one from the park photo. My breath caught in my throat. Below the drawing, scrawled in shaky writing, were 2 words. I see you. Chills washed over me. Who had been in my apartment? And why were they leaving this message? Questions collided in my mind as I flipped through the pages, desperate for anything else. Then I noticed it, another piece of paper tucked inside, a small envelope. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out and opened it, revealing a single photograph. I squinted at it. The image was blurred, but I could make out a similar shadowy figure standing behind a tree. It looked familiar. My heart sank. It was taken in the same park where I had found my previous photo. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the hallway, startling me. They were getting closer. I instinctively pressed myself against the wall, gripping the knife like a lifeline. The figure from the park was haunting me, and now it was here. "Who's there?" I called out again, 2 parts fear, 1 part defiance. Then the footsteps stopped. I held my breath, listening intently. I could feel the tension in the air, heavy and suffocating. That's when I saw it. A shadow moving just beyond the hallway's edge. My heart raced. There was no going back now. I edged closer to the doorway, praying I was imagining things. The faintest hint of movement caught my eye again. It was there, just beyond the threshold, a dark shape shifting, almost breathing. My fingers tightened around the knife. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come. Instead, I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. The atmosphere felt charged, thick with fear. Dark corners seemed to hide secrets ready to pounce. "Show yourself," I shouted, forcing more courage into my voice than I felt. Silence hung in the air, taut and unnerving. Then, in a sudden rush, the light from the street lamp flickered, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse. A gaunt face staring back. Panic surged as I stumbled back into the living room, my pulse racing. I never got a good look at the figure, but something about its expression was deeply unsettling. I quickly set the knife down on the table. My hands shook as I tried to breathe. I glanced around the room, searching for something I could use as a weapon, or maybe a way out. My mind raced. What if I wasn't alone after all? What if someone was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike? That's when I remembered the notebook. I picked it up, flipping through the pages frantically, hoping for a clue or warning. Each drawing echoed my fear. The shadow, lurking, always there. But I needed to focus. I opened the envelope again, studying the photograph closely. The more I looked, the more familiar the tree in the photo seemed. It was from the park, but why did it feel so important? I had seen that tree many times, but now it felt like a tether connecting me to whatever horror lay ahead. Suddenly there was another noise. A soft whisper followed by a low laugh echoing through the apartment. It sent chills down my spine. Someone was in the apartment for certain. I felt the walls closing in again, compressing my breath. Crouching behind the couch, I caught a fleeting glimpse of movement at the end of the hallway. A figure passed, silhouetted against the dim light. I needed to know what was happening. I took a deep breath and peered around the edge of the couch. My heart sank as I spotted something on the floor, something glinting in the fading light. It was a keychain, the same one I always used to open the back door. That was my keychain. The realization hit me harder than the fear that gripped me. Someone had been in my space, my sanctuary. Panic clawed at my throat. I grabbed the knife again, heart pounding as I prepared to confront whatever was waiting in the shadows. But just then, the laughter returned, echoing in a way that twisted my insides. It wasn't just laughter. It was a taunting sound, almost familiar, as if I should know it. "Who is it?" I shouted, trying to mask my growing fear with bravado. The whispering stopped. A heavy silence followed. My breath felt stuck in my chest. I glanced back at the notebook, praying for an answer. What did it all mean? Then a voice came from behind me, soft as silk but sinister enough to make my skin crawl. "Did you think you were safe here?" I whipped around, adrenaline pumping through my veins. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. There was no one there, but the voice lingered, wrapping around me like a cold fog. I scanned the room, searching for any sign of whoever, or whatever, was messing with my mind. "Show yourself," I shouted again, my voice a mix of anger and fear. I wanted to sound tough, but it came out shaky. No response. Just silence. I felt the walls closing in again, the shadows stretching into monstrous shapes. I checked the notebook again, flipping back to the pages with the drawings. They were frantic and strange, depicting shadowy figures lurking in the dark. I traced my finger over one of the drawings. The outline looked oddly similar to the face I had seen. What was the connection? Suddenly a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. It felt like a hammer to my chest. I jumped, knife still clutched tightly in my hand. Someone was definitely in my apartment. The sound came again, a crash followed by the unmistakable sound of shattered glass. This was no longer just about shadows, it felt real and dangerous. Without thinking, I dashed toward the kitchen. My heart raced as I pushed through the doorway, ready to confront whatever was there. But when I turned the corner, my breath hitched. The room was empty. Then I saw it, the shattered remains of a picture frame on the floor, the glass glinting like small stars in the pale light. The photo inside was still intact, the image slightly warped from the impact. It was a picture of me, probably from last summer, with that same tree from the photograph in the envelope behind me. The same tree in the park. What does this mean? I muttered to myself, feeling a chill creeping up my spine. The feeling of being watched was more potent now. I turned, half expecting to see someone standing right behind me, but there was just the echo of my own voice. I picked up the frame, hoping the familiar warmth of the memories inside would ground me, but instead it felt heavy and ominous in my hands. I needed to get out of there. The park. My mind raced. If the tree held some sort of significance, maybe I could find answers there. But uncertainty clawed at me. How could I be sure I wasn't being followed? Suddenly, the laughter returned, sharper and much closer this time, almost in my ear. Instinctively, I slammed the frame down on the kitchen counter and spun around again. There was still no one there, but the air was thick with an electric tension. Then I heard shuffling behind me. I turned just in time to see a shadow slip out the back door. It was fast, disappearing into the night like a phantom. My mind screamed at me to run after it, but fear rooted me in place. Just then a gust of wind blew through the opened door, rattling the loose papers on the counter. My attention snapped back to the frame. For a moment, the photograph shifted in the breeze, revealing something written in pencil on the back. I flipped it over, and my heart dropped as I read the words. I'm always watching. Terror gripped me again as I realized, whatever this was, it wasn't over. I needed to leave. The park, the tree. I had to find answers. With a final glance back into the darkened apartment, I grabbed my keys. I had no idea what awaited me out there, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to find peace inside these walls. I stepped into the night, determination pushing me forward, even as the laughter echoed in the distance. As I stepped out into the night, the chill of the air turned my breath to mist. I hugged my jacket tighter, trying to ward off a deepening sense of dread. Each step down the quiet street felt heavier, as if the ground itself had turned reluctant. But I had to keep moving. The park was just a few blocks away. The laughter followed me, a soft undertow beneath the sounds of the night. Rustling leaves, distant traffic, a dog barking at a ghost. I quickened my pace, my eyes darting between the shadows cast by the streetlights, half expecting a figure to leap out from the darkness. When I finally reached the park, I hesitated at the entrance. The tall trees loomed like sentinels, their branches swaying but still. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon me, analyzing me, mocking me. Get a grip, I muttered aloud. It was just the trees, just the wind. I made my way towards that damned tree, the one in the photo. The grass was damp underfoot, the scent of earth and leaves almost comforting, but that comfort was quickly overshadowed by the oppressive quiet that blanketed the park. It was too quiet. No crickets, no nighttime creatures, just silence. As I approached the tree, my pulse quickened. The trunk was thick and its gnarled branches twisted like something alive. I reached out, feeling the rough bark beneath my fingertips. A slight vibration pulsed through the wood, and I jerked my hand back, startled. "What is wrong with me?" I whispered, taking a step back. Perhaps the fatigue was finally catching up. Maybe I'd built this all up in my head. Then I noticed something half buried beneath a pile of leaves at the base of the tree. I knelt down, heart pounding. It was a small, rectangular box, old and wooden, the hinge rusty. I hesitated, my mind racing through the possibilities. Should I open it? What if this was the key to everything? With trembling fingers, I pried it open. Inside, there was just one item, a silver locket. I held it up to the dim light and noticed it was engraved with an inscription. Always with you. The words sent chills racing up my spine. Who was this for? And how did it get here? Hey! A voice called out suddenly, snapping me from my thoughts. I jumped and spun around, ready to confront whatever shadow had emerged. But there was no one there. The chill enveloped me again, more intense this time, as if the darkness was alive. I turned back to the locket, my heart hammering against my ribs. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes now, like they were staring deep into my soul. The laughter erupted again, louder and mocking, and I found myself backing away instinctively. That's when I heard it, a whisper, right behind me. You shouldn't have come here. I whipped around, adrenaline surging through me, but again loneliness greeted me. The park was empty, the tree looming ominously in the background. My pulse raced, the shadows had taken form, and the air seemed thicker, more suffocating. I had to leave. I stumbled back, the box still clutched in my hand, but as I turned, just at the edge of my vision, I caught another fleeting shadow darting between the trees. My breath quickened. Whatever it was not just watching me. It was ready to strike. I increased my pace, the woods closing in behind me. I was on the edge of something terrifying, and I had only just discovered that I was not alone. I ran. My feet pounded the earth, the grass slick beneath me as if trying to pull me down. The laughter echoed around me, a twisted soundtrack to my panic. I didn't dare look back. I focused on the distant glow of streetlights beyond the park. If I could just reach them. As I sprinted, shadows darted at the corners of my vision. I could hear whispers again, a blend of excitement and malice. Was it all in my head? Maybe this was what sleep deprivation did to you. The thought almost made me trip, then came a pause. The laughter faded to nothing, leaving only my ragged breaths and the rustle of leaves. I stopped, heart pounding, scanning the dark for movement. Hello? I called, my voice trembling. Nothing answered but silence. With shaking hands, I opened the box. My gaze fell again on the locket, that haunting message engraved on it. Always with you. My instincts screamed at me to leave it there, but curiosity pulled at my thoughts. Who had it belonged to? What connection did this hold to me? A rustling snapped me back to reality. I was not alone. I quickly shoved the locket back inside the box, closing it hastily. I started to move again, stepping carefully in case I'd attract attention. I wasn't sure I'd be able to outrun whatever was watching me. That's when a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, dark, and faceless, as though it had been stitched together from night itself. I staggered back, a cold wave of fear washing over me. "Who are you?" I demanded, voice shaking. "Looking for something?" the figure asked, its voice a haunting mix of whispers. It stepped closer, the darkness around it swirling like smoke. I could barely see its eyes, but I felt them burning into me. I need to go. I turned to flee, but the ground felt uneven beneath my feet, like it was shifting. "You shouldn't have come here," it said again. And I stumbled, knowing instinctively that the trees were closing in. Suddenly I saw a flash of light. It flickered briefly, illuminating the thick trunks around me. Someone else was here? My pulse skipped as the light danced toward me. I had to reach it. It felt like salvation. I dashed toward the light, adrenaline pushing me onward. The figure's laughter trailed after me, taunting, almost musical. But just as I reached the edge of the park, the brightness flickered again and disappeared. I skidded to a stop, madness rising in my chest. I was at the sidewalk, the safety of the street within reach, but I felt paralyzed by fear. I had to find a way out, yet the shadows still pushed against me. The figure loomed close, its presence a heavy shroud that suffocated my defiance. That's when I heard the laughter again. It wasn't just echoing. It was inside my head, a manic chorus. "You can't escape," it taunted, filling me with an icy panic. Just then the box slipped from my fingers and fell to the ground with a thud. I glanced down stupidly, the world around me spinning. I had lost the only clue I had, and the urgency to get away escalated. As I bent to grab it, I felt something behind me. I turned slowly, but instead of the figure I only found the thick darkness staring back. Then, everything went dark. I woke up sprawled on the grass, the cool earth pressing against my cheek as reality seeped in. The park was empty now, the distant streetlights muted, the laughter faded to a whisper caught on the breeze. It was dark and still, and I panicked momentarily, my heart racing. Where had that figure gone? The weight of dread settled onto my chest as I pushed myself upright. I scanned my surroundings, desperate for any sign of the presence that had chased me. The trees towered above, their branches swaying gently, but the shadow I had seen was nowhere in sight. It was quieter than it had been earlier. No laughter, no whispers, just silence. A sense of unease clung to me, yet I couldn't deny the absence of immediate danger. Slowly, I stood and brushed dirt off my clothes, glancing around for the box. It lay a few feet away, the locket still nestled inside. I slowly bent down to retrieve it, and as I did, the echoes of my fear washed over me again. The feeling of being hunted lingered, tightening in my gut. I picked it up, cradling the box like it was a fragile treasure. The inky darkness felt alive, pulling me back towards its depths, but I had to keep moving. I glanced back at the trees, half expecting to feel that cold whisper against my skin. My resolve strengthened by the moment. I turned and hurried towards the park entrance, wanting desperately to escape the very shadows that had seemed so inviting just days earlier. As I reached the edge of the park, I stopped to catch my breath, glancing back one last time at the gnarled trees that whispered secrets only they might understand. When I looked up at the moon, a sliver of light cut through the lingering darkness, illuminating the path ahead. I crossed the threshold from park to pavement, allowing the comfort of city life to wash over me. I could hear cars passing, the distant laughter of people enjoying the night, which felt both reassuring and reassuringly normal. But deep down, an unsettling question festered. Had I really escaped? With every step, the weight of my experience pushed against me. I moved toward the nearest diner, a familiar beacon amidst the night, its warm lights shining like a promise. The door creaked open and the aroma of coffee and fries wrapped around me, a sharp contrast to the shadowy woods I had left behind. I slipped into a booth and took a moment to gather myself, placing the box and locket on the table. The waitress approached, her smile welcoming, but it felt disjointed, as though I were still half immersed in the eerie reality I'd just fled. My mind churned with memories, the shadows, the laughter, and that horrible feeling of being watched. "Can I get you something?" she asked, snapping me back from my spiraling thoughts. I nodded quietly, my appetite swallowed by the dread still gripping my heart. I needed to talk about what happened, but who would believe me? I grabbed the locket, absent-mindedly tracing the inscription as I felt a familiar chill crawl up my arm. "Always with you," I whispered, unsettled by the ambiguity of those words. What did they mean? Who had it belonged to? I could feel its presence lingering even now, a connection to something that went beyond explanation, teetering on the edge of the natural and supernatural. Despite everything that had happened, I glanced out the diner's window, toward the dark shapes of trees lining the street beyond. What if it was watching me still? What if it always would? I spent far too long in that booth, lost in thought. I signed my bill and stepped out into the cool night air, the lingering questions hanging like shadows at my back. As I walked home, my gaze drifted to every darkened corner, every looming silhouette, every gust of wind. Could I ever truly escape what lurked beneath the surface? I didn't know. I only hoped the shadows were satisfied for now. But I had learned something that night. Fear isn't just about what is seen. It coexists with the unseen, lingering on the fringes and always waiting for the right moment to emerge, just as it had in the woods. I moved to a different neighborhood shortly after that weekend. Life resumed, but the echoes of that trip never really faded. I still think about the laughter sometimes, especially when the wind rustles through the trees. I keep the locket in my desk, a constant reminder of the shadows I encountered whispering to me that some mysteries may never find resolution, leaving the lingering question of whether they are ever truly gone.